Okay, so I guess most of you have joined. So let's start. So I've tried to start this lecture on an interactive note. So many of you have already messaged me, sir, scan नहीं हो रहा है. So होगा भी नहीं scan. सिर्फ मेरे fingerprint से scan होगा. We're just kidding. So let's start with this subject, which is called as Advanced System Security and Digital Forensics. The very first thing is this subject is just the advanced version of what you have studied in your last semester. That is cryptography and system security. Okay. So in this introductory lecture, I'm going to explain what are the main concepts from this particular subject, what you should know, and what are the prerequisites that you should brush up, right? And then we'll start with few of the topics for today. So let's enter into this world of security and digital forensics. The very first thing is module number one. In total, there are 6 modules. Module number one is all about the introduction to this subject and what are the various access control techniques. I hope you have gone through the syllabus because obviously this is an elective subject, so you must have gone through it. If not, we will also discuss the syllabus in detail. This is just a introductory session in which I will discuss what are the various modules. I will give the overview. So the very first thing is module number one is all about introduction and access control. In module number two, we are going to learn about how we can provide security to a program as well as to an operating system. Okay, this much might not have been covered in the previous semester in CSS. So we are going to cover these in detail: how to provide security to an OS, how to provide security to an individual program, and so on. You can see that the circles are of various shapes. Why so? Because each of these modules have some predefined weightage. The module number 3 and module number 6 are of highest weightage. We will see what I'm trying to convey when I exactly go through the topics. Module number 3 is all about how to provide security to a web application. In your previous semester, you have already seen what is SQL injection, what is cross-site scripting, and how to protect our machines against those attacks, right? So in this subject, in this semester, we are going to learn more about them in detail, how actually attackers create payloads and send them to the victim so that once they click on that payload, they fall victim to the attack. It could be SQL injection, it could be cross-site scripting, it could be any kind of injection sort of attacks. Okay, so we are going to learn about those attacks and how to provide security to our machines against those attacks in this module number 3. In module number 4, we are going to learn about the various wireless technologies available. You are well aware of WPA, WEP, wireless encryption protocol standards. So we are going to learn about them more in detail. What are the various algorithms being used in those? For example, in your previous semester, you had learned about RC4. If I'm not wrong, it was a stream cipher. You have studied about it. So the main use of RC4 ciphers was in GSM technology, the main application. The GSM technology phones which you use is basically encrypted using RC4 or RC5 to be precise. Okay, so we are going to learn how to provide security to a wireless device with the help of WPA, WPA2, etc., and so and so. In the module number 5, it's all about the legalities. For example, you might also have an ILOC subject, for example, cybersecurity and laws. It's quite similar to that. It's basically how the victim should approach the administration, the law enforcement, in case he or she falls victim to a particular attack. If he or she becomes victim of an attack, so how to deal with those cases? What are the various legalities? What are the various ethical issues? We'll learn about those in the module number 5. And the last module is all about digital forensics. In your older syllabus, there was a complete subject on digital forensics, but this time they have clubbed it uh, as a single chapter. So obviously, the contents of this particular chapter is huge, but they have summarized it into a single chapter. So it's going to be a lengthy kind of a subject. Basically, if you go through the syllabus, I will just run through the syllabus once. You will see that it's a very lengthy kind of a subject. So there are n number of concepts which you have to go through. Most of them you have already seen in your previous semester, so it might not be that difficult for you to grab those concepts. So let's start with the very first module, introduction of module number 1. Module number 1 basically consists of 8 hours, which comprises of these two topics overall. That is cyber attacks and vulnerabilities, followed by access control policies. Now, what do you mean by access control? Any idea? You can use the chat box and let me know what is access control. I would like to keep this session as interactive as possible, so kindly use the chat box and let me know what is access control. You've already seen it, you have already done it in your previous subject, cryptography and system security. So let me know what do you mean by access control. Yes, you can use the chat box, or if you wish, you can use your microphones. You can unmute yourself one by one and let me know the answer. Am I audible, by the way? Yeah. Okay. So I thought I'm not audible, speaking from so long. Okay. So let me know. Yeah, I'm getting few answers. How much someone have access? Okay. Defining rights for authentication, deciding who can access data from a system. Okay. Restricting, allowing of particular task. Okay. Cool enough. So from this, I come to the conclusion that according to you, access control is something, a summarized version, that is a user is having some right to access a file or not, whether the user is able to access a particular file or not. For example, you might have seen in Unix systems or your Linux systems, we use access control techniques. If you know about the command chmod, are you aware of it? Change modifications, chmod. If we want to change the restrictions of a particular file or a folder, we have certain rules. For example, if I write chmod 777, what does it mean? Kindly use the chat box and let me know. Chmod 777. What does it mean? I'm going to pop up these sort of questions in between, so be ready. I'm asking what is this particular command called as. Let me zoom it up. Don't Google it, huh? Making file readable and changeable. Making file readable. Only readable. Is it only readable? Yes or no? Permission for the file readable and write. Yes, read, write, and execute. If I put the value 7, it simply means read, write, as well as execute. Right? So R, W, and X. These are the three variables: read, write, and execute. So if I put 777, 7 simply means the maximum privilege. So if I give any file read, write, as well as execute permissions, it has to be 777 chmod. Clear? So this is, I'm just starting with this particular subject. So I may be asking few questions out of the syllabus. So be prepared for it, as I always do. So access control basically consists of two things: authentication as well as authorization. I've already discussed it in the previous semester. What is authentication? What is authorization? Now you might be aware of it. Yes or no? Authentication and authorization. Authentication is just what we saw in the very first slide. If you remember what I did, this is nothing but an authentication I'm talking about. Scan to enter, put your fingerprint. If it's valid, then only you will get access. Okay. If it is not valid, you won't be given access to the system. So this is what we call as authentication. Now, once I'm authenticated by the machine or by the system, I have certain access rights. For example, I may be able to delete files, or I may not be able to delete files. So basically the system admin has to provide me some sort of access rights. This is what we call as authorization. Clear? So access control comprises of both of these things: authentication as well as authorization. So in this first chapter, we are going to learn about access control policies and cyber attacks and their vulnerabilities. We have already seen what kind of cyber attacks are possible in your subject, cryptography and system security. In this semester, we are going to learn about them more in detail. I will try to keep it as hands-on as possible, so that you would come to know what exactly we are doing. In this lecture also, I will try to give some demos on how to actually carry out some attack. Let's see if time permits, we can do so. Okay, so this is all about the first chapter or the first module. The second module is program and OS security. It's also again having a weightage of 8 hours. So 8 lectures need to be taken for this particular chapter. This is all about providing security to a program as well as to the operating system. So you can see over here, these are the various sections in this particular chapter. First of all, this is what we have done already, but we'll learn about how to create them. We'll see how to create viruses, we'll see how to create worms, and how to protect our machines against them. We are not sitting here to carry out attacks on others' machines, right? We are ethical people. So we are destined to actually protect those machines, right? So we'll learn how those viruses, worms, trojans, bots, etc. are created and how we can safeguard our machines against those. Similarly, what are targeted malicious code? Targeted malicious code. क्या होता है ये? What is our target? You might have heard about phishing, right? Recently, a series also came on that on Netflix, Jamtara. So it's all about targeting your victim. For example, if I am trying to carry out a phishing attack, I first of all need to find out my target. Yes or no? If I'm having all the information about my target, for example, my target works at a bank, he earns a salary of suppose 1 lakh per month, then he might be spending those money somewhere on some malls or some shopping sites. So basically, you have to target your victim so that you get as much as data as possible about that victim, and then you can carry out your attack. This is what is the very first step of hacking. Reconnaissance. This is called as reconnaissance or information gathering. Okay, so targeted malicious codes are nothing but, for example, salami attacks, which you already know. Salami attacks pata hoga sabko. Use the chat box if you are not aware of it. I can explain. Similarly, after salami attack, there are linearization attacks. Many such attacks are possible, which are targeted malicious codes. Okay. Next up, we'll learn how to provide security to an operating system. Now we know that Windows is very likely to get attacked by the viruses as compared to Linux OS, right? Because Linux has its own advantages over Windows. Similarly, it goes hand in hand basically. Somewhere Windows is better, somewhere Linux is better. The user experience wise, you may feel that Windows is better. But on the other hand, Linux provides a better security as compared to Windows. So most of the mainframe computers on, or you can call servers, are based on Linux as compared to Windows, right? So in the last part, we'll learn what are the various Linux as well as Windows vulnerabilities, which are readily targeted by the attackers nowadays. So how to protect against those, we'll learn about that in detail whenever we start this particular module and this topic, which is Linux and Windows vulnerabilities. Okay, next up, kindly let me know if I'm going fast so that I can slow down. Module number 3 is all about web application security. Okay, but before going there, let me have something interactive for you. Okay, open your phones if you're having your mobiles with you. Go to this website. It's called menti.com, menti.com. I guess I had already asked to carry a phone, or if you're using a laptop, it's well and good. Go to this website and use the code 680060 and give your answers. Then we'll check whether you're right or wrong. It's basically we have done in the previous year. So kindly use that knowledge and answer it. No issues if you're wrong. Let the whole world see how many answers I'm getting. Okay. Zombies. Okay. What are search infected host machines called? Okay, actually I have not given the background. Let me give a background first. I actually forgot to give the background first. Suppose I'm talking about DOS attacks. Okay, those who have answered, it's pretty good. They have blindly given the answer. I have not given the problem statement yet. Okay, let me give the problem statement. Suppose there is a DOS attack happening in the background. Okay, distributed DOS attack, and the attacker is making use of multiple computer machines or multiple computers to carry out those attacks. So what are those machines called as? This is my question. Now you can give your answer. Take 2 minutes of your time. Think upon the problem statement I have given. I'm carrying out.
Sir, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm repeating. Just suppose I'm carrying out a distributed denial of service attack, and I'm making use of few computers who will do the task on my behalf. So those machines are already infected, right? So what are those machines called as? This is my question. I'm getting zombies as answers, botnets as answered, both six, neither one. Okay. So is the question clear now? So now I'm expecting answers from you all. Neither. Okay. Why neither? Can you please tell me why the answer is neither? 28 zombies. Okay. I hope we are not having zombies in this class because I want active people. Okay. 30 zombies, 20 botnets, total 50, 60 हो गया. 62 answers only. बाकी लोग बाकी लोग zombies है क्या? Kindly give your answers. Let me know you're active. This is also one kind of an activity to track the attendance. Okay. So kindly let me know if you're active or not. I will also get the IP addresses who have attempted this particular question. Okay. I'm not bluffing. I will show you. So just let me know. Zombies, botnets, both, neither. Okay, ये neither वाले बढ़ रहे हैं अभी 3 हो गए. Okay, botnets, zombies. The answer. Okay, now let me switch it off and then I will tell you the answer. The answer is both. Obviously. आगे देखेंगे हम लोग. I will share a document with you. You have already seen this particular topic, right? In CSS subject. So यहाँ पे answers आने चाहिए थे properly. I was expecting सब लोग यहाँ पे both देंगे. Okay. The answer is both. It can be a zombie, it can be a botnet also. Why zombie? Because zombies are like undead people, right? They are not dead, they are not living. They are controlled by someone. I have already given this example in a class many times. They are like sleeper cells. They only act upon when they are instructed. Otherwise, they live in the society like normal people. Here we are not talking about people, here we are talking about computer systems. So when the computers are instructed that you have to carry out this activity, then only that computer will launch the activity. Otherwise, it will remain dormant. So such a machine is called as a zombie in common terms. In technical terms, it's called a botnet. Okay, clear? So next up, we'll start with this web application security. Out of these, you have already seen what is CSRF. We have done a practical, if you remember. We have done a practical on this. We have already done cross-site scripting in the last semester. We have already done what is SQL injection. So some of these attacks we have already done. I'm going to show you phishing today, a live demo on phishing. And if time permits, I will also show you what is brute force attacks. So these are the basic vulnerabilities that a website is having. You can search this. I have already asked you to search it previously also. You can search for this particular term OWASP. Open Web Application Security. I forgot the full form. You can just check it. OWASP basically discusses about all the vulnerabilities that a particular web application has. Okay. So just go through it. Let me know what are the various vulnerabilities out of these top 10 OWASP vulnerabilities that you know, and let me know if you can safeguard your machines against those attacks. Okay, so we are going to learn about these many attacks whenever we start with this chapter. It's a very interesting kind of a chapter. It's already having 12 hours of loaded content, so it's gonna be interesting. Let's see how it goes. Next up, we are going to learn what is wireless security. Now, as already discussed, wireless security comprises of these terms: Wi-Fi security, mobile device security, GSM and UMTS security, and VPN. Now you know about VPN, right? Similarly, we are going to learn about how to use VPN from a what you can say, from a white hat perspective. Black hats can use VPN. They can use it to safeguard their machines and carry out the attacks. But how we can use VPNs for our security purposes, that we are going to study in this chapter, VPN security topic. Okay. Next, we'll learn how we can provide security to our mobile devices. Obviously, we can use antiviruses, third-party applications. But again, third-party applications have their own drawbacks. You open up a hidden port for the entire world to hack into a machine. if you are blindly trusting any third party application. So before downloading and before giving the access, before clicking yes, yes, yes on every terms and conditions, just read it once, and then you will come to know how dangerous it is. For example, we are not using Zoom right now, we are using Meet. Why? Because it was found out that Zoom is having some security implications. It reads your location, it reads your data, computer data, mobile data, it can track your history and all. So that's why we are not using Zoom, we are using Google Meet. It's just an example. Okay. So similarly, in this module, we will learn about all these things. When we move ahead, module number 5 is all about what is cybercrime, what are the various sections of cybercrime, if you are a victim of cybercrime, how you can report against those cases, and where to report. Basically, cybercrime is a relatively new term in our country. From 2000 onwards, it has got its significance. The first law came in 2000. The actual law, if I'm talking about the actual IT Act, it came in 2000, then amended in 2008, and again in 2018 or 19. So basically, there were few things which were felt. For example, if you are stealing a computer, okay, I'm having a computer at my place or at my office. If somebody steals that, okay, will it be cybercrime or will it be a traditional crime? Let me know your answers.
Traditional crime.
Traditional, okay. What else? Traditional, okay. Let me tell you, till 2000 it was considered to be traditional crime, but later on it was amended that it is a cybercrime as well. Because cybercrime is not only related with the software, it also encompasses all the hardwares as well. So if you're having a mobile phone, if somebody steals your mobile phone, that is also a cybercrime. Anything digital, if stolen, is a cybercrime, can be part of cybercrime. Okay. Digital data, whenever you are having digital data on any device, it is nothing but part of cybercrime. So these are few amendments that were made in the already existing law structure in IT Act 2000. Then amendments were made in 2008 and so on. We'll learn more about them in this particular chapter, and then we'll study few cases based on these ethical issues. And finally, the most interesting one after this third module is digital forensics. Why so? Because in this particular chapter, we are going to learn how to react after an attack has taken place. Till now, chapter number 3, chapter number 4 was all about discussing how to carry out the attacks. But now we are going to learn what to do if an attack takes place, how to safeguard our machine against those attacks. Attack ho gaya, what to do next? Using digital forensics, for example, it is again similar to forensics. Traditional forensics is all about humans, right? Doing some test on the humans, finding out of humans or any living being, finding out what actually may be the reason of the crime. The similar concept applies over here. We are going to deal with computers, laptops, tablets, PDAs, whatever, any digital device. Suppose I am giving you a case study. I have already discussed this in class also. There was a case where an employee used to steal data from the company in a pen drive. Sorry, not in a pen drive, in an iPod. What actually happens is nobody actually imagined that iPod could also be a device which can be used to steal data. Obviously, iPod is a storage device. It consists of songs or whatever you can store inside it. So songs are nothing but data only, right? So what actually the person used to do is, while checking into the office at 9 a.m. or so, she used to go to her workstation, copied the content on her iPod from the office desktop, and just before leaving the office at 5 p.m., she used to delete the content. So what exactly happened is, if if by chance also if somebody checks the iPod, then also the data wouldn't be present over there because she has already deleted it, right? But what exactly happened is, when she used to reach her home, she would use any data recovery tool, and using that data recovery tool, she basically used to retrieve the data back. So as a result, what happened? The company data was at stake. She used to spy the data and sell it to the competitors. So this is an actual case study. I will not tell you the name, but this actually happened, and this was traced after 2 or 3 months of this particular activity based upon the high traffic rate of that particular desktop machine. Okay, so we are going to learn how to actually retrieve the data once it is deleted, how to create forensic duplications, how to investigate forensic images and Windows and Unix machines. So this is all about this particular subject. Till now, if you're having any doubt, you can ask me in the chat box, or you can turn on your mic and ask me the questions. After that I can go ahead with the flow of this particular lecture. Okay. If you're having any doubts, you can ask me. No doubts. Okay, very good. So let me proceed ahead. Okay, in the meantime, you can go with this particular next question. तो आंसर आना चाहिए. Okay, check the next question on your mobile device and let me know the answer. I'm just doing a recap of what you've already studied. So it's not very difficult. You can easily solve it. Okay, the code, 1 second. Code is 680060. It's on the screen. 680060. Okay, answer kar lo pehle, then I will tell you the difference. So obviously, many of you are knowing the difference. Many of you have given the answers correctly. That was a subtle hint. Okay, so which of these is an active attack? Just take 2 minutes, not more than that. Complete this, then I can start the next topic. Okay, the answer is obviously, you might have got the hint. The answer is spoofing. Active attack. I'm trying to impersonate someone else. Sniffing is all about getting the data passively. Spoofing is actually carrying out an attack by trying to copy someone, right? So the answer is spoofing. Okay, so let's get back to the topic. Next topic. After this, I will show you a demo of how phishing is actually done. The very first topic for today, or the first chapter, cyber attacks. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details of what exactly is cyber crime, what exactly is cyber attack. In this lecture, I'm just going to give you the highlights of what are the various attacks that are termed as the most dangerous kind of attacks that happen in real time even now. Okay, so the very first is denial of service attack. You might have heard it. You have done it also. This was the question actually I was trying to ask you previously. So you already know now what is a denial of service and what is a distributed denial of service, where if the attack is carried out with the intention of causing harm in the sense disrupting the availability of the system. You might have noticed when I had scheduled the test, yaad hai na, on my website, a lot of traffic came onto it and it was sort of a denial of service at the same time. So if a lot of people are accessing a particular website or a particular resource at one point of time, it knowingly or unknowingly causes a denial of service kind of an attack. So the solution is you either reduce the traffic or make your queues, the buffers of longer length, of huge length. so that more number of people can be accommodated. Similar goes with the IRCTC website or your Mumbai University website, which after receiving huge amount of load simply crashes. So that is the main reason. It might not be termed as an attack, but it is actually an attack. Knowingly or unknowingly, you are causing the attack. It's called as denial of service. You are blocking the availability of the service for the actual user, right? It can be carried out using these methods. We have already seen these methods, so I'm not going in detail. You already know what is SYN flood, three-way handshaking, right? So I'm disrupting the three-way handshaking and causing an attack. That is what we call as distributed denial of service. Botnets. You can read this once for those who are having this doubt. What is a botnet? Botnets are the millions of systems infected with malware under a hacker's control in order to carry out DOS attacks or DDoS attacks, right? These bots or zombies are used to carry. These bots or zombies, I have mentioned it, are used to carry out the attacks against the target systems. Okay, basically using up the bandwidth of the system. This is what we call as a botnet. Second is man in the middle. Now this I want to highlight. We are going to see this attack in our practical sessions. I'm also planning to conduct the practical once in 2 weeks or once in a week if time permits on Saturdays. You just give me your feedback, and according to that I can decide. So session hijacking basically is all about, have a look at this diagram. If it's clear, suppose I want to carry out an attack. Okay, so I have to come in between the actual communication between the victim and the server. So how do you get to know the IP addresses of all the machines in a computer system? Let me know your answers. Keep it as interactive as possible. I want to get the IP addresses of all the machines connected on my network. Obviously, I have to be in the same network. IP config, correct? It will give my IP address, but I want to know the IP addresses of all the machines present in my network. How to do so? कैसे करेंगे? I want to know the IP address of all the machines. Wireshark is an option. Okay. What else? उससे भी simple. IP config all. Yeah, that will give me the answer. Correct. IP config all. What else? और कुछ होगा? Have a look. Let me increase the size. Okay. Let me write it over here. It's basically ARP minus A or hyphen A. What is ARP? What is ARP? Any one of you can answer.
Address resolution protocol.
Okay, what do we get from that? Why do we use it? Now you can see my screen.
For IPv4 address.
IPv4 address of whom? Of me or anyone else?
सर नेटवर्क पे जितने रहते हैं उतने सारे.
करेक्ट. सो यहाँ पे देखो ध्यान से अभी. दिस इज माय नेटवर्क. इतने सारे दिख रहे हैं, उसमें से कुछ तो हार्डवेयर है. फॉर एग्जांपल माय प्रिंटर. Okay, you can see there on the left most column is the IP address, IPv4 address. Middle column is the MAC address, and last column is the type, whether it is static or whether it is dynamic. As we know that I'm using a Wi-Fi, right? So my IP address keeps on changing. So it's dynamic based upon the public IP, right? So all the devices connected to my network is shown over here, and this is my IP. 192.168.8.1. I can verify that using IP config. Over here, this is the IP address of the default gateway I'm using, 192.168.8.1. Clear? So basically using the command ARP minus A, I can get to know what are the various devices present inside my network. Correct? So now I can then choose any of that IP address range as a victim. For example, here I have chosen the victim 192.168.1.23 to be my victim. Now, how can I use this victim's IP address to carry out the attack? Any idea? अभी क्वेश्चन क्या पूछा था मैंने? What is spoofing and what is sniffing? try to use it. Can I spoof the victim's IP address? Yeah, ARP spoofing, or you can say IP spoofing. Okay, so there are two techniques. First of all, the simple one. Now I have the IP address as well as the MAC address of the victim. What I can do is I can simply use some spoofing techniques. There are n number of tools available on the internet. I won't tell you about it. You just do the research. It's just for research purpose. Okay, so you can search any of the tool. You can use it to change your IP to MAC binding. You can change it. Now you also have the MAC address of the victim, right? Using that ARP command. So now you can change your IP as well as your MAC and then send a request to the server. The server will respond to it, and the data whichever the server is sending will be received by you as well as the victim. But there's a catch, because in a network you can't have two IP addresses which are same, right? There would be a clash. So what happens whenever you spoof that victim's IP address, you will be the recent IP address and the victim's IP address will be removed from the IP table. So as a result, what will happen? Whatever the server is sending, you will receive it and the victim will not receive the data. This is one of the techniques. Second one could be, you can wait for the victim to make a communication request with the server. You first of all wait for the victim to make a request to the server, and then after the victim has sent the request, you send a request to the server, okay, by changing your IP address to the victim's IP address. This is also similar concept, but this is a little tricky. Why? Because you have to keep in mind the timings also, right? So you can't do it as a person. You need to have some algorithm or a computer system which will run in the background, and it will keep a track of whenever the victim has sent a request. It all happens within milliseconds. So that's why I'm saying that you as a human being can't do it, because you can't be active for 24 hours. So you need to have a botnet or a bot which will basically do the work on your behalf. Got it? Itna clear hua sabko? If you're not clear, let me know. Okay. This is how we can carry out a real session hijacking kind of an attack in real terms, right? So I will stop it over here and start with the demo. I will continue with the next topics in the next lecture. I will just start with a demo. I will show you how phishing actually happens. So for that, I'm using a Kali machine. I will share all the codes and all with you after this lecture on your Google Classroom. So let me log into my machine. We are going to use a tool which is called as Shellfish. Yeah, it's called as Shellfish, not Selfish. Okay, so let me increase the font. Is it visible? Okay. Okay. So I have simply checked which are the files present on my system. I've already installed it. I will share the installation steps with you. This is the tool which I can use for carrying out an actual phishing attack. Let me show you. I need to go inside that Shellfish directory. So I'm just changing my directory to Shellfish. Again, do an ls. Over here, there's a file called as shellfish.sh. I need to run this script. Obviously, .sh means it's a bash file. So I need to run it using the command bash space, the name of the file, shellfish.sh. Enter. This is the interface. I'm using Kali. This tool is not present over there by default. So I have to install it from GitHub. I will share the link. Just have a look at the huge array of websites that can be phished using this tool. Again, a disclaimer, I am not responsible for any misuse or damage caused by you. It's entirely your call. It's entirely your wish. So if you're doing it for research purpose, try only on your try only on your machine, not on your friends as well. Okay, और मेरा machine कभी try मत करना hack करने का. So just check this out. This is basically the huge array I'm showing you with the help of Facebook. Okay, so just choose the option. Facebook is the option number 2, so I'm choosing option 2. It will start the PHP server. Okay, it takes few seconds or few minutes to load up. Now you're done. Have a look what to do. You can see this link over here. This is nothing but this is the link which you need to send to the victim. Basically, the attackers copy this code, copy this link, hide it inside some other wrappers. Wrappers as in you can hide it inside a image using steganography or whatever you wish. Steganography pata hoga sabko, what is steganography? Hiding anything behind images. Okay, so that if you wish to send this email, it should also look genuine, right? For this experiment purpose, I'm using this particular link. But if I'm an attacker and I wish to carry out an actual attack, I won't be using this link. Why? Because nobody will click on this link. It looks suspicious, right? So I need to copy it, convert this into some meaningful link, for example, bit.ly, tiny URL, whatever, and then send it to the victim. So right now I don't have a victim, so I am myself the victim. I'm copying it, okay, and then I'm going to the browser. I'm using this machine only. Paste it, press enter, and just wait. It will load up, and you will see how strikingly similar this is to your actual Facebook account. Okay. It is taking some time, so in the meantime, I have already done some experiments previously also. This is how the website looks like. It is exactly same. You can visit the Facebook website and then check it out. It looks exactly same. So what exactly happens is, if I use this email or phone section, okay, login section, whatever data I will enter over here, that data will directly go to the attacker's machine. It's now loading up. It's taking a long time, so I will just give the demo using this only. So if I enter something over here, it will directly go to the attacker. How? You can just check on your dashboard. Sorry, on this control panel, Shellfish one. Just have a look. Vinit Dedia has already logged in. Okay. So you can see the link can be used to send to your friends. It can be shared with your friends, and whenever they log in, you get this much data. You can see over here, this is the very first IP address which I found. Somebody, Vinit, has already used this IP. He has logged in, and these are the details of Vinit's. Okay, he is using Bharti Airtel as the provider. Location, obviously, Airtel's location is shown as Pune. Similarly, what currency is he using? Obviously, it's India, so Indian rupees. The credentials found, these are the credentials being used by him. I don't know, पता नहीं किसने किया है ये, कोई और होगा. Somebody else has used this particular credential. It's live only, don't worry. किसने अभी किया है, कोई recorded नहीं है ये. Okay. So if it is actually yours, change it right away. Okay, Vinit. So change it right away. The password has been compromised, so you can change it right away. Basically, this is what happens if you share it with your friends. They may do some here and there, and you're gone. Yeah. Okay. Your friends might have done it. No issues. If it is your actual password, change it straight away. Okay. If it is related to any of your accounts. Okay. So this is how phishing is actually done. So I actually intended it to be on a local host, but you guys are more smart. So you have already tried it on live system. So basically this was all about phishing, which is carried out live. Okay. So I hope you got an idea about how things are done. It is really very simple. Let me tell you something. Social engineering has become one of the most common and successful attack techniques. Why? Because it leverages the weakest link. Weakest link कौन है? हम लोग. We are the weakest link, the human beings, because it is really very easy to fool human beings, right? So that is why it is one of the most easiest and successful attack techniques. And one of the social engineering techniques is phishing that we have seen just now. So basically, it is used as an attack to attract your victims by sending them links so that whenever they click on those links, all the information of that victim comes directly straight away to you. So now I'm closing this terminal so that no further uh, credentials are shared with me. Okay, once you close this, your session is over. So now if I visit that website and enter any information, I'm I'm not going to get that information because I have closed this session. Clear? So this is how we actually carry out phishing attack. Now next up, I would like to show you how we carry out brute force. Brute force, you know. Yes, Sagar, we can use some sort of payload also. We can use Metapreter. Metapreter or Metasploit can be used for carrying out this sort of an attack. Okay. You will see whenever we start with a Metasploit section in the practicals, I will show you how we can carry out these using payloads. Okay, using a reverse TCP engine, we can do so. So now, let me quickly show you how we can carry out a brute force attack. In the meantime, answer this quickly. We are running short of time, so hurry up and answer this. Okay, so now tell me what is brute force. What exactly is brute force? Quickly, you can use a chat box and let me know what is brute force. Trying all combinations, okay. The main difference between brute force and dictionary-based attack. Anyone? Anyone having the answer? Main difference between brute force and dictionary-based attacks. By the way, I have sent the feedback links. So after this lecture, kindly fill it up within 5 to 10 minutes. Dictionary has a combination listed. Okay, dictionary basically has a file using which, using the combination of all the characters present inside the file, you can try to break the password. But brute force is basically carrying out all possible combinations. So to show this, I have a local host website. I'm showing it on my local machine. So this is a website. The pin number I'm knowing, but I will not enter that pin number straight away. For example, let me type in 1234 and try to enter. If I enter the pin over here, you can see on the top left, it's asking me to go away. That means it's not the correct password, right? So I have to keep on trying the various combinations of the password to get authenticated. But it's really a tedious process. It's simply a 4-digit number, but it takes a lot of time. So how to do so? I will show you with the help of a code. Okay. Let it load up. I will share this code also with you so that you can practice upon. In the meantime, you can fill the attendance so that time बचेगा आपका. Okay, I will show you exactly what I'm doing. Okay, now have a look. Before pressing this enter, I will simply copy it so that it looks better. Okay. This is the code. This is nothing but I'm running it. I guess I forgot Python. Yeah. This is a Python code. You have to enter the file name followed by the argument. The argument is nothing but the website on which you're trying to carry out the brute force attack. Okay, in my case, this is this particular website, localhost brute force. So I need to copy this and then carry out the attack. Okay, let's go over here. This is the directory, what I need to do is I need to type Python space brute force. Why brute force? Because brute force is the folder name. And then the file name, which is bruteforce.py, followed by this IP address, which I have copied from here. This one. Copy it, paste it over here, and press enter. You can see in the background, it's trying out all the various combinations, all the various possible combinations of passwords. One of the passwords will match with this particular password, which is the actual password. I hope it works out. Yes. So you can see, I got an answer over here. I will simply copy it if it is not visible properly. I have copied it. Let me paste it over here. It's 3441. So now let me try copying this password and pasting on the website. Okay. Now let's press enter. You can see, welcome. So basically you saw how quick it was. It took hardly 15 seconds, 15.58 seconds. Why? Because the password only consisted of numbers. So it's also a cross check for you. If you are having passwords only consisting of numbers or only characters, obviously you should make them alphanumeric, add some characters in between. What it does is, the more number of characters your password will be having, the more time it will take to crack the password. And hence, this is how brute force attacks are carried out in real life. Got it? So now we are at the end of this particular lecture. If you are having any doubts, you can ask me. We are still having some time. You can use the chat box. You can ask questions. Let me know if you got what we have done in this lecture so far. If any suggestions for me, you can drop in. Thank you. Use this time. 6 minutes है. कोई doubts है तो you can ask me.
सर ये मेथड जो आपने यूज किया ना,
Yes.
वो मैं किसी और वेबसाइट जैसे कि फेसबुक और वहां पर यूज कर सकता हूँ सेम मेथड?
कर सकते हो, लेकिन आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि उनका पासवर्ड क्या है, कौन से फॉर्मेट में.
ओके, बट अगर मैं इतने सारे ट्राई कर रहा हूँ तो फिर उसको एक्नॉलेजमेंट कहाँ से मिलेगा कि ये पासवर्ड राइट है रॉन्ग है? क्योंकि हम लोग अगर ट्राई करते हैं पासवर्ड 3 बार डाला तो उसके बाद बोलते हैं यू हैव टू वेट फॉर अ सर्टेन व्हाइल, या फिर तो फिर इस पे वो एक्नॉलेजमेंट का कैसे सीन है?
ये बैकएंड पे होता रहेगा. ये ऐसा मत समझो कि आप ये अटैक कर रहे हो तो सामने वाले को पता नहीं चलेगा. ऑब्वियसली जितनी बार वो पीछे बैकग्राउंड में चल रहा है उतनी बार उसका आईपी ट्रेस हो रहा है फेसबुक के सर्वर पे. समझ रहे हो? सो यू हैव टू डू इट इन सच अ वे. फॉर एग्जांपल अभी आपने बोला तीन बार गलती किया तो इट अगेन सेंड्स मी अ मैसेज. सो बेसिकली व्हाट हैपेंस इज, फॉर एग्जांपल मैं एसबीआई का एग्जांपल दे रहा हूँ. एसबीआई इज हैविंग अ लिमिट ऑफ 5. After 5 attempts, you are locked out for the entire day. Okay. For 24 hours, you are locked out. So what exactly you can do is, you can keep on trying 4 combinations and then wait for some time. And then again go for 4. And again wait. समझ रहे हो? So first of all, you need to understand कि वो website पे कितना time का threshold है, कितना attempts का threshold है. If you anyhow get to know कि suppose ये website पे 5 attempts का ही threshold hai, so I will go till 4 attempts and then wait for some time. After a few minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I can again try with the next possible combinations. So it's not that easy in real life because you have to know what is the exact limit of that website. समझ रहे हो? Then only you can carry out the attack.
Yes sir. Thank you sir.
Most welcome.